Welcome to the Center for Universal Oneness. We are an open, welcoming, spiritual community that supports all faith traditions and invites you to join us on your spiritual journey. We host different speakers each week to guide and inspire us. We are guided by universal principles of acceptance of all that is sacred, and we strive to live in the oneness of love.
Let me read just a little bit about Laura. And so here you go. We have a highly acclaimed third generation Unity minister. And I'd be curious later to talk about the first two generations, but not now. A minister, a teacher, a spiritual coach, almost 40 years of experience. That seems impossible. You would have had to start this when you were 7. But let's keep going. Founding minister and CEO of the new online ministry, Unity of the Heart Mind. And so take a moment to go check that out, if you would, folks. Let me read a few inspirational words, and then we'll give it to Laura, okay? What you likely have in common with all of them is desire to find encouragement in the face of challenge, peace in the midst of conflict, beauty in the people and things of our world, inspiration for contributing to others, and guidance for a rich and fulfilling life. And I found that particularly meaningful to me, so I wanted to share that with you. She says, I want that for you. I want that for our community, and I want that us all. So there you go. With that, Laura, please tell us what you will.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So I am, can you hear me? I want to make sure I'm not on mute. Am I on mute? I'm good? Okay, terrific. So I am a third generation Unity minister, and just a brief visit of that. My father was Dr. Paul Bennett, and he was the head of the ministerial school at Unity for a number of years. And he was a who's who in New Thought for biblical interpretation. So that was the inheritance I picked up on, and I was chairperson of biblical studies at Unity headquarters for the ministerial and adult education for about 14 years. And somewhere between a half and 2/3 of the ministers out in the field now were my students at one point, either in SEE or in the ministerial program. And my grandmother was a minister, and she founded Unity of Fairfax outside of Washington, D.C. There's a whole family history it was my mother's mother, so that's how my parents met. They met in Unity. And so I birthed into this life. I think my soul must have chosen it. and here I am. It's so great to be with you today. And because of this, I have an openness and a sensitivity growing up in Unity. And you don't just have to grow up in Unity. Every soul has this, if we are just reminded of it in outer ways. I grew up with things like I am God's perfect child, and kinship with all life, and these are the ethics and values that I grew up with. So I still experience these in very expanded and universal ways. I stepped outside my front door this morning just for a moment to feel the cool air, to get the morning's blessing, and sure enough, a flock of geese flew overhead right at that time, and things like that just always take me out of myself just for a moment and expand my awareness and my connection with all that is around me. How many of us have had those moments, when we see something or hear music, or we have something that takes us out of ourselves for a moment, because we are connected with all of creation. I have a quote here from Neil deGrasse Tyson, a good old atheist and a scientist, who to me, a lot of our quantum physics and our cosmological physics world is very spiritual. So that's his form. I call that his form of spirituality, though he may not call it that. But he says, we are all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, and to the rest of the universe atomically. So we actually do have physical connection with all that is around us, with each other, with the earth, and with the whole cosmos. And as I was saying, we have those moments where we're reminded of that connection. One that stays in my mind, before it was flooded with millions of visitors a year, when it was one of the national park's best kept secrets, my husband and I would go camping in Zion National Park out in Utah. And one night when we were camping and I was looking out, it was a perfect evening. So we had our screens open in our tent. I was lying on my mattress, looking out the tent screen, and I saw this light over the horizon, like a line of light, over the horizon of these large monoliths that they have. One of those, a couple of them that were close together, I saw this light emerging. I thought, oh, the moon must be rising. So I sat there long enough to watch the moon rise. And what came up over the horizon was not the moon. It was amazing. It was a fuzzy obelisk. And I knew from, just earlier hobby reading in astronomy that I was probably looking at the Andromeda galaxy. It was that bright out in the desert where there are no city lights. Everything just shines brighter. And so Andromeda was just shining so brightly. And I was just amazed because this is the first time I had ever gotten a definitive, clear look at it with the naked eye. And it was just an amazing, amazing moment. So I'm going to use Andromeda as our framework right now. And I'm going to ask for that first slide to go up. Yeah, okay. So we're waiting on those James Webb pictures of Andromeda, but in the meantime, we have this beautiful Hubble picture of it. And it's 2.5 million light years distant. And I think it's somewhere in the, I really wouldn't know. In about 50 million years, our sun will go nova. I think in about 3 billion years, these two galaxies will collide, Andromeda and the Milky Way. And these are cosmic events that are so far in the distant future, we don't think about them much. But in cosmological time, that is not much time. And so this is our closest neighbor here, the Andromeda galaxy. And it reminded me of something. It reminded me of something. One of the things I used to teach in my Bible interpretation classes was I would teach people how to interpret the Bible. And we would conclude the class with the interpretation of the first chapter of Ezekiel. And who knows what's in the first chapter of Ezekiel? Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the air. And it's amazing. It's amazing when we look at an infrared image like this of Andromeda, what we are looking at. I'm going to read a little bit about that from the scripture. As for the appearance of the wheels, their construction, their appearance was like the gleaming of beryl, and beryl is like a color, a yellowish gold color like this, a brownish yellowish gold color, just like you see in this infrared picture. Their appearance was like the gleaming of beryl, and the four had the same form, their construction being something like a wheel within a wheel. There we go. Their rims were tall, For the rims of all were full of eyes all around, and you see all of the stars, each one probably representing a solar system. You see all of the stars, some new, some old, the blue dots there. And above the dome over their heads, there was something like a throne. In appearance, now look at the center of the wheel, in appearance like a sapphire. So I thought, man, this is an amazing correlation with Ezekiel's vision. Now, the thing I used to say about Ezekiel, he was down by that river Chebar when he had this vision. He was a prophet in exile. His people were going into exile in Babylon. Wasn't much they could do about it. They were taken from their homeland. And he was down by the river when he had this vision. And I said, he must have been eating the mushrooms, when he had a vision like this, because these are pretty, if you read the whole vision, it's pretty wild. And but by the end of the class, we had the whole thing interpreted. But just a brief summation of what these wheels represent is pretty amazing. God is omnipresent. God is omnipresence. My great metaphysical instructor, Martha Judici, used to say God is omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence. And you use a capital O when you say that, because these things are, all of it. They are all of it. So God is omnipresent, symbolized by the mobilities of the wheels. That wheels are what move humankind around. So God is omnipresent, can go anywhere, and be anywhere. God is omniscience, symbolized by the eyes all around the wheel, the all-seeingness and all-knowingness of God. And God is omnipotence, symbolized by the great sapphire throne. That omnipotence is what is all powerful. It's the creative power out of which the whole universe came. And I believe that if we knew more about these black holes at the centers of these galaxies, we would see so much as they pull in matter. We would see so much of how much creation depends on the presence of these black holes. So we have this tremendous creative power symbolized in our universe. And where is this power? Where is this knowing? Where is this presence? Wow. It's right here. Right here. All of it is in you. So given that we are connected chemically, atomically, in many, many ways, physically as well as spiritually. And I do believe our physical world is the outpicturing of our spiritual reality. Given this kind of connection in life, what happens to this connection when the wheel that we are spinning, when we wake up every day, we spin that wheel one more time? What happens to this connection when this wheel lands where we don't want it to land? And let's go to our next image. There's your wheel of fortune. All right. How many of you, and you can raise your hand or just nod. And I know we're on speaker and slide image, but just acknowledge for yourself if you've ever watched or are watching Wheel of Fortune as a regular thing. My mother-in-law watched it, so my husband and I got into the habit of watching it. Well, you can see that the Wheel of Fortune has, big prizes, big events. It has times when we need to pause and lose a turn, and it has bankrupt on it. And so we're going along fine in life. And then all of a sudden we hear Pat Sajak say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." when our spin of the wheel lands on bankrupt, where does God go at that time? And you can just keep the images up. That's just, that does just fine. And some of the bankruptcies in our lives we've been looking at lately are our divisive politics, that really, some of which have shaken the very foundations of our democracy, and global wars that even threaten the use of nuclear weapons, our changing climate that brings with it drought and flood and fires, and our multi-year pandemic. We were just hearing about that. We've just had someone's recent experience of it. Who was that again? Who had the COVID just recently? I think many of us have had it at least once, but yeah, who was that?
Oh, that was myself. This is Dan, Laura.
Dan. Yeah. So you know that experience of
yes.
yes. Yep. And we're still hearing the sad news of 400 people a day. My goodness, multi-years these pandemics can last until they go back, until they take that normal status. We still get our flu shots for what? For many of us, we're protecting ourselves against the flu that killed so many people back in 1918, 1919, 100 years ago, 100 some years ago. But here we're dealing with COVID today, and hopefully the tail end of its having any great significance on our lives. And then we have inflation and supply issues, and most recently, representing our global change in atmosphere, we've had a tremendously destructive wheel come into the lives of our friends and neighbors and brothers and sisters in Florida. And I'm going to ask to go to the next slide here. Now, I looked up images of Hurricane Ian, and there are some good images of Hurricane Ian that I could have had here. But when I looked at them, because I have friends and family in Florida, no image of this wheel of devastation is shown because of the respect for those who are currently in the wake of its aftermath. It had an emotional effect on me, and I wasn't even there. So out of respect for friends and family, I did not show Ian colliding with the east coast of Florida, and you could see very clearly right through the eye of Ian at that time. Some of my friends were right under that, and my stepdaughter, lived down there near Punta Gorda up until just a few months ago, and my husband and I were there about a year ago. So just holding everyone down there in our prayers in that rebuilding time. So we can look at the destruction of Ian and the misfortune of a lot of people, and we can contemplate, what if life was a great wheel? What if it is something we take a spin at every day, and sometimes that wheel feels like $1 million. We have a great day. We make a new connection. We have a breakthrough in our spiritual insight and in our personal relationships. We have a prosperity experience. Sometimes that wheel can feel like $1 million, and other times we land on an experience that leaves us with a sense of desolation and bankruptcy. Well, here's the good news. We can always spin the wheel again. So whatever happens, if you don't remember anything else from today, you can remember this. We can always spin the wheel again. Whatever the condition, whatever the circumstance, we can meet the challenge. And when it seems to be too much for us, we can call upon the divine within us in whatever form we need it. Do we need its omnipresence? Often that omnipresence is experienced as love. The unconditional love we feel in ourselves and connecting with everything and everyone else, the unconditional compassion we might have for others, the unconditional compassion we might experience from others when our soul is in its greatest need. Sometimes it shows up as omniscience, ideas, and wisdom that guides us when we most need it as to what we need to do and when we need to do it. Sometimes it shows up as power, the strength, and the courage to walk through whatever is happening, no matter what. And so we have these things of omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence right here and right now. Even in the midst of the storm, people were spinning the wheel of life. Some lost their lives, and many lost their homes. And our hearts are prayers, and maybe even actions of contribution in some way, shape, or form are with them. Others barely made it through, texting their loved ones goodbye, only to find a heroic first responder stepping in and pulling them out of danger. So I have some other Ian images to show, and go ahead to the next slide. These are images of that which goes from like the wheel of life goes from good to bad and finds the good again, even in the bad. It is stronger than any hurricane, and it is the divine human spirit. Tony Atkins was a cameraman for a local news station, saw this woman trapped in her car when they were filming the storm, and stopped filming and walked out. Somebody else must have picked up the camera to get this, walked out and put her on his shoulders, waded through the water, put her on his shoulders, and brought her to safety. And she was a nurse on her way to work at the hospital to help people there. Mike Ross saw a kitty trapped, as some of you may have seen these stories, saw a kitty trapped on top of an air conditioner and waded outside to rescue the kitty, who he didn't know, but I'm sure the kitty was grateful. And these are the kind of things that pull us back to that $1 million tag on the wheel of fortune, because these things are invaluable. This is what comes from the divine human spirit that we all are and all have. And go ahead to the next slide. So we can remember, and this is a James Webb photograph or infrared image of what's called the Phantom Galaxy, which is 32 million light years distant. It's an amazingly detailed picture. The wheels, the central brilliant throne, the eyes all around are all there in the image. We have the omnipresence, the omniscience, and the omnipotence of God. And where do we find these things? My great another great metaphysical instructor that I had, Ed Rabel, said, silence is pure power. Silence is pure power. We have the omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence of God with us every moment of every day, because that is what we are. And we are going to take a moment right now to experience just that. So take a deep breath and close your eyes and relax right where you are. Sense yourself inside of your body. Then, with your inner awareness, expand your presence to fill the room where you are right now. Then let your awareness go beyond the room to your neighborhood, your community, to this whole metro area. I hear the birds chattering outside my window as we say this. Even they are feeling our moment. And let that awareness expand up into the sky and the clouds and around the whole earth to encompass all of humankind. And continue expanding beyond the clouds, beyond the Earth's atmosphere, into the whole of the cosmos. Just as the telescopes bring the cosmos close into us, we recognize that we are not apart from even the farthest corner of the universe. That we are in it and it is in us. And for the healing, whether it is a virus or the challenges of an aging mind and body, let us feel the power of healing. Let us feel the wisdom of the pure guidance that directs us what to do and when to do it. And most of all, let us feel the presence of love in the silence. And so it is. Amen. And when we forget who we are, we'll go to the next slide. When we forget that we're all that, we have the rest of humanity to remind us.